you sacred activists out there.
Yes.
This is whence the future will be born. Out of the depths of our own courage, out of the depths of compassion that is present in everyone in this room and everyone not in this room. Let me tell you a story. This happened in my neck of the woods in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay actually, a couple years ago. There was a whale that was caught in fishermen ropes, and she was flaying around, and she was going to die because she was getting more and more tightly bound by those ropes. So 5 men put on wetsuits and got in a dinghy, each one with a machete, to go out and try to liberate this whale. It was a very dangerous operation. One flip of the tail and any one of these men could have been killed. And they spread out around the whale. One of them was at the front, and because one of the ropes had gone right through her mouth, and he was staring at her eye during the entire operation. And the operation lasted about 45 minutes, and they did untie the whale. What did the whale do? First, she went swimming to 3 giant circles. You would do that too if you had just been liberated from a death sentence. Then, she went up to each of the 5 men in the water and nudged them, touched them, giving her expression of thanks. This is a true story, and it's an important story. It was because of the humans that the whale was trapped in the first place, but it was also the humans who had the courage and caring enough to release the whale. And the whale knew all that. And the whale was expressing its kinship with our species. And all of us have to reconnect to the more than human and our kinship with all that is more than human. The finned ones, and the tree people, and the rock people, and the cloud people. These are the kind of times in which we live. This is what's being asked of us. Now, what made this operation successful, I think, was 2 things. First was caring and compassion on the part of these men. And secondly was courage. Those 2 things, compassion and courage, are what need to remake the future. Now, there is also, of course, the presence of the divine feminine in all of this, because compassion in both Hebrew and Arabic comes from the word for womb. The womb people, the mammals, are especially gifted with the potential for compassion and kinship. And one of the great needs of our time for our species is that we tame the reptilian brain, which is 420 million years old in all of us, therefore very dominant, and is, look around, controlling the earth, controlling economics, controlling education, controlling a lot of religion. We have to tame that reptilian brain in order to release the mammal brain, which is a compassionate brain, which is exactly half as old, 210 million years old, in all of us. And this is why every spiritual teacher on the planet that I've ever read, whether it's the Buddha or Lao Tzu, whether it's Black Elk or Muhammad, or Isaiah or Jesus, is calling us to compassion. And compassion is part of the energy of the divine feminine. When the masculine, when testosterone gets connected to too much to the reptilian brain, bad things happen. For example, our species spending today $39,000 a second on weaponry. Where did that come from? Go home tonight. Sit down and write out a napkin. What would you do with $39,000 a second? How could we be a little smarter about what we're doing with our resources? Courage, where does that come from? Cur, large, a large heart. Okay, how do we enlarge in our hearts? Through joy and through love. That's what expands the heart. Fear shrinks us. Joy and awe and beauty expands us. Love expands us. So the way to build courage is to fall in love more often. Whether it's the whales that are calling you, whether it's the trees that are calling you, whether it's future generations that are calling you, you got to give your heart to that stuff. And that's how we start over. Now I'm going to tell you another story about courage. A young woman, 30 years old, I met in Rome a year ago. She's a translator for a publisher. And I was going to Rome for some work, and I figured I had to do something useful when I was there. So I translated my 95 theses that I had pounded at Wittenberg door when Cardinal Ratzinger made himself Pope. I pounded it in German, translated it into Italian, and I showed up at 10 a.m. at a church in Rome, deliberately chosen, Maria Maggiore, where Cardinal Law was in charge. Cardinal Law was the notorious Bishop of Boston who let pedophile priests on the loose. One priest alone abused over 225 boys, and Cardinal Law was elevated to run this church at Maria Maggiore. So we had an action there, but as we approached, of course the press were there and others, and I noticed some policemen. And I said to my young translator, I said, I see 4 or 5 policemen. Oh no, she said, those 8 guys in the back in street clothes with dark glasses, they're Vatican police. So we got a lot more than 4. And I said, well, are you scared? And this was her answer. Memorize this answer from a 30-year-old young woman. She said, I believe in what we're doing. I'm proud to be here. Someone has to do it, and what happens will happen. That's courage. What happens will happen. You have to be convinced that you're committed to something worthwhile, like these men were in the dinghy, and you have to follow through. That's courage. And you don't get overwhelmed by the future, what is not yet. You ground yourself in your values in the present. And that's, out of that is how new things get born. New movements and new visions. So really I think that the work of justice, the work of compassion, the work of calming the reptilian brain so the mammal brain can assert itself, that is behind this world movement that is and has to continue to catch on. And remember that there is a way to calm the reptilian brain without killing it, and that is meditation. Check it out. Reptiles love solitude. They're not real good at bonding, but they love to lie alone in the sun. So the way you learn to calm your reptilian brain, nice crocodile, is through meditation. And our species is not going to make it without meditation, calming that reptilian brain. And we're not going to make it without the divine feminine returning with all of her power and her insistence on compassion, and creating a new balance between the sacred masculine and the divine feminine. So look for these dimensions, these energies in your own life and in your communities. Watch them return. The divine feminine and the sacred masculine, not the toxic masculine that is spending $39,000 a second on weaponry, but the healthy masculine, which is about the spiritual warrior, which is part of every woman's soul as well as every man's soul. We're in this together to men and women to recover the living goddess, the divine feminine, and the sacred masculine, the non-toxic masculine. This kind of sacred marriage is, I think, what the future is asking of us. Thank you.